Netflix's beloved horror/young adult story just released its second season, and we, for one, are excited about all the hidden details we can uncover if we can just look hard enough. Word on the street is that, like Season 1, Season 2 is also full to the brim with Easter eggs from the comic books the show's loosely based on. And today we'll be counting down some of these Locke and Key Season 2 Easter eggs and details fans missed. So keep watching to find out the truth about who the new big bad may be. Number 6. The Demon Key. As we mentioned before, the show's loosely based on the comic series of the same name by Hill and Gabriel Rodriguez. First Easter egg we'll be discussing will center around the keys. As part of the title, the keys in this show hold significant value. The keys are what kickstarts the plot, and more importantly, what connects the paranormal in this show with the normal. In Season 1, we saw the keys being used for various different things like changes in appearances or dematerializing, and even transportation. These keys were mostly part of the comic books, and it was fun for audiences to compare how they were translated and adapted for the show. In Season 2, things have kicked up a notch as it's not only details and mentions pre-existing keys that are part of the comics, but it also mentions some that aren't and were created for the show solely. So your average viewer may have missed that the Demon Key that was created and forged by Duncan after Gabe's coercion was actually not part of the comics at all. This key can turn anyone into a demon, and more specifically combine their soul with a literal demon. Another key that was not part of the comics but was created specifically for the TV show was the Memory Key. In this lore, the key was created by keepers of the key so that they could retain their memories of magic well past their childhoods. This was to contour the rifle rule that makes adults forget their memories. The only similar key that could be connected to this one are the Riffle Key that is briefly mentioned in the comics as the source of why adults forget, and the Head Key, which Duncan is seen using himself to make himself forget the secret to forging more keys. Number 5. Duncan's improved arc. Anyone who's only read the comics will tell you that Duncan as a character does not stand out at all. And although he holds a significant role, he's mostly a male version of Nina for most of the run. The writers of the show, Averill, Cuse, and Colliette, talked to The Observer and mentioned that they wanted to give Duncan a much larger role this season, and that they also referred to him as Duncan Door, often as a way to associate his future mentorship with that of Dumbledore. This was because Aaron Ashmore is a great actor that they felt that they were underutilizing. As audiences may have noticed this season, Duncan had been actively helping Tyler and his friends once they had his memories restored in episode 5. He guides the kids about magic and the Keystone House, something their father couldn't do because of their past actions, the consequences of which everyone is still dealing with. Although he forged the Demon Key for Gabe, it's revealed that he can control the demons as he is technically their creator, and that is not even the first key that he's created, as he's also the original creator of the Memory Key, which was then used by Aaron and the other keeps to erase his memories of the key and retain theirs. Number 4. Gabe and Eden's dynamic. After the popularity of Season 1, it can be presumed that everyone already knows that Gabe is not a character that existed in the original comics at all. It's popularly believed that Gabe was introduced in a child's body to tame how harrowing the demon really was in the comics. As Kinsey's love interest and a demon who's been part of the human world for some while now after, Rendell and his pals from high school released it, and Ellie brought it back last season. It can be presumed that Dodge has learned how to blend in. Add that in with Eden, a completely new character who isn't part of the comics and also newly possessed by a chaotic demon. This forced Gabe to work with Eden, or the demon possessing Eden, which proved to be a fun dynamic. Creator Meredith Averill revealed that both Eden's character and her possession was an attempt by the show to alienate itself from conventions that can get boring. By not having one sole bad guy to fight, the addition of Eden and her subsequent possession prevented the risk of the show running a bit monotonous and stale. Eden was struck by the demon bullet at the end of Season 1, and it's a funny coincidence as she happened to be a very unlikable character to begin with, which led her transition into being possessed almost seamlessly. The season focused on Dodge and Eden's relationship as Dodge tried to stop Eden from recklessly destroying all of her plans. To quote Averill, that levity adds another layer to the character, and it stops them from being too mustache curly and instead gives them a bit of more of an edge. Number 3. Chamberlain Locke. You might assume that a ghost might not be very relevant in a show where a person can literally turn into one at any point with with a key, but the addition of the character of Chamberlain Locke proves otherwise. In fact, he is one character that can technically be credited with the events of the whole series, as he was the Locke ancestor who gave Rendell the secret to forging new keys with whispering iron, which then led to Dodge entering the human realm. It's interesting and important to note that Chamberlain Locke was actually not a part of the original Locke and Key 7-part series at all. He was a character from a spin-off series of books, as is the case with many characters of the show. We already know that the show is much less gruesome than the comics are, and also try to make creative changes in order to provide viewers with newer content. Chamberlain, who also appears this season just as misled Gabe, is considered to be a character of great importance, as he's aware of every event that takes place at the house, and even helps instigate some that Averill claims he still feels guilty for. Yes, we mean Rendell encounter years prior. Chamberlain even tries to stop Gabe with Sam Fender once he returns to confront him, but that plan fails. In the interview with Observer, Meredith Averill added that the Chamberlain's entrance into the show was an intentional attempt at opening up the world of the show and making it a little bit bigger. Number 2, the story's different. While the show's never been much for following the source material to the T, it often uses certain storylines. These storylines are then changed a bit and adapted into something your casual Netflix viewer may easily be able to follow. The first half of the season follows the general comic series story with the introduction of Gideon and Dodge's slow plan, but it adapts the very end of this story for the final episodes. This is an unusual decision considering the show has been renewed for the next season, and the comic series end is considered to be a relatively big deal, with Duncan helping Tyler craft the Alpha Key, which is considered the most important key in the comics besides the Omega Key, the Dodge's defeat. We can presume the show did not save the big finale for a later season. Dodge, who is given primary antagonist status for most of the comics, was only a villain in the show for 2 seasons. According to creators, they did so because they wanted to avoid the comic book formula. In the comics, whenever someone discovered Dodge's identity and almost told the Locks, they'd be murdered by Dodge, and Dodge would go back into hiding using a different alias. This is not to say that the show is not going to adapt from the comics at all. In fact, showrunner Meredith Averill also mentioned that there are certain stories left that viewers will see in season 3 and potential subsequent seasons. She also mentioned that season 3 also has new stories and new keys, and that the showrunners are lucky to have this wealth of not just the main 6 volumes of the comic, but all the spin-off comics too. Number 1, Gideon takes over. If you paid attention to Gideon all season, you may have noticed that he is set to be the next big bad in the upcoming season 3, as confirmed by creator Meredith Averill. This may not be great news for Eden or for Tyler and the rest of the Locks, but it does mean chaos, as Gideon is not as subtle a demon as Dodge was. And with that, we conclude the video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed watching the video, please be sure to leave a like and comment down below. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to get notified every time we post a new video.